All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So we all got the shocking news that Corey Davis decided to retire in the middle of the day today, right? It was, I think, like, what, 30 minutes, an hour after practice wrapped up. News broke, I believe it was from Connor Hughes of SNY, that Davis is stepping away. And then shortly after, Davis ended up putting a quote on social media where he thanked his friends and family for supporting him along the way, along with him, having an amazing family and him really looking forward to spending more time with them. And then Saleh actually came out and had another press conference today, just a couple minutes ago, as far as the time I'm filming this. And he said that, the door is always open for a return. His heart goes out to Davis and supports his decision. And then Randall Cobb came out and pretty much said the same thing, that life is bigger than football and that he's always going to be in his corner. So again, I hope everything with Corey is all right, all good. It's a big decision. Corey's 28 years old. He's leaving $10.5 million on the table. And it's not like the Jets are some, dumpster fire of a team and everybody's kind of bunkering down for like a 3-win season. No, we're thinking about the Super Bowl. These, tons of pressure, a lot of expectations, a lot of hype surrounding the Jets this season. It's not really many people at all are kind of looking at the season, looking ahead and saying, man, this is going to be rough. We just have to brace ourselves every single Sunday for a beatdown, right? So it's a concerning decision by Corey, but again, if this is what he feels like is right for him, this is what's right for him, and I'm wishing him nothing but the best moving forward, and I just hope really everything off the field is okay. So now the next step for Joe Douglas is to figure out what the plan is at wide receiver. The good news, we have multiple weeks before the start of the NFL season. That $10.5 million is going back into the Jets' pocket, so we have more financial flexibility. And on top of that, the Jets we were already in a pretty good place before the retirement. So the Jets could do a lot of different things. Let's talk about the two simple ones real quick. Number one, they can they could really give Corey Davis's roster spot to one of the young guys battling for the position, right? Whether it's Xavier Gibson, who's been turning a lot of heads as of late, especially on special teams, or it's a Jason Brown-Lee, someone who's impressed in camp, just looks like he has real NFL size, NFL strength, NFL speed, somebody who's really, in my opinion, done a lot for being an undrafted free agent. Maybe both of those guys make the team now as opposed to just one. That surely could be a route that the Jets travel down, and then maybe see how they progress as the season goes on. Because in my opinion, I don't know how many, and I guess you can, it is a testament to Douglas and the Jets organization, but I think if the Jets are cutting players here, a lot of these guys are going to be picked up by other teams. So, we have to be sure with what we're doing as far as releasing and waiving these players over the next couple of days after the Giants game. So that's option number one. Option number two is waiting to see who gets released, who gets waived by deadline day. And deadline day is August 29th at 4 o'clock Eastern. So, with the new rules in place, NFL rosters are going to go down from 90 to 53, and that all has to be done, all 32 teams, by Tuesday. In other words, there's going to be a massive influx of younger players, potentially older players, wide receivers that are going to be hitting the market, going through the waiver claim pickup or the waiver claim cycle. Maybe Douglas has his eye on a couple roster bubble guys, maybe specific players that he was thinking about drafting, but he opted to go with his class, his draft class instead, or maybe undrafted free agents elsewhere that he really liked, just couldn't come to an agreement with. They opted to go somewhere else due to money or situation, whatever the case may be, and now he has an opportunity to claim one of those players. Or even maybe it's a similar situation, but the previous year, right? He didn't have the opportunity to go get one of those late round draft picks from a year ago, and now all of a sudden they are becoming available. So that's something that the Jets could explore. I feel like one wide receiver that we've seen his name just pop up over and over and over again, whether it's him potentially being released or him getting traded, is Hunter Renfrow from the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, this is a situation where the Jets are kind of more so taking an analytical approach where it's like, okay, Corey Davis would have given us X catches, X amount of touchdowns, whatever the case may be. We have to replace those numbers. Who realistically can come in and do that for us? But as far as like scheme fit, positional really skill set similarities, Hunter Renfrow and Corey Davis are two different players completely. So there is that question mark that pops up as well, which is where things get a little muddy, right? Hunter Renfrow is a good player, albeit he's battled a ton of injuries over the past last season, and with a concussion, oblique injury, what else? I know he's dealing with a shoulder injury currently. But Renfro's a good player. Jets need a wide receiver. On the surface it does make sense. But when you're looking at the roster and you're like, okay, well, is Hunter going to come in and be the slot guy? Who's actually going to step in into Corey Davis's shoes and replace what he can do on the outside? As a blocker, as a big-bodied red zone target. I think that's where things get cloudy. Next up, I think we should talk about the elephant in the room here, DaVante Adams, Aaron Rodgers' former teammate. It's pretty safe to say that Aaron still loves DaVante. We all saw what they've done. We saw what DaVante did last season with the Raiders. Freaking unbelievable. DaVante Adams is, in my opinion, probably the best wide receiver in football. It's either between him or Justin Jefferson in my eyes, but given DaVante's track record, his resume of just doing it year after year after year after year, to me, I think I would give the edge to Adams. He's big, he's fast, he's a fantastic route runner, great hands, reliable. You could constantly throw the football his way, big catch radius, never really lets the quarterback down. Just the definition of a game-breaking wide receiver. The thought of Adams on this team with guys like, Garrett Wilson and Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall in the backfield, like, it is insane to think about. But here's the thing. When talking about trading for a player, a big name player here in Adams, we have to ask the question, why would the Raiders trade him? They just acquired him from the Green Bay Packers over a year ago, where they traded away a first and a second round pick. He came in and absolutely dominated. DaVante hasn't really given any sort of indication that he's bailing on the season. He wants to be traded. He hasn't, formally requested a trade. He hasn't really given the Raiders any sort of reason to get rid of him. And then if we flip it and look at it from Vegas's perspective, like an organizational standpoint, Dave Ziegler's perspective, Josh McDaniels' perspective, I mean, last season was pretty disappointing, right? As far as wins and losses go, you want all hands on deck. This guy was great for the team last year. I don't see a situation where now all of a sudden, after one fantastic year, after giving away a haul to go get him, now you're trying to push him out the door. And we also have to think about, let's hypothetically say something happens. DaVante requests a trade. The Raiders all of a sudden want to get rid of him. What can the Jets offer? Because of Joe Douglas's conditions with the Aaron Rodgers trade, we cannot trade the first round pick. We cannot trade the second round pick. One will be going to Green Bay, but both are off the table because that condition has yet to be reached. We don't have that set in stone yet. Therefore, both you cannot move. So now we're realistically looking at a third round pick, multiple mid round picks for DaVante Adams. Yeah, if I'm a Raider fan and you're talking about the Jets are going to offer a fourth or a third for the best, top three wide receiver in football, I would say, are you kidding me? Absolutely not. There is no way that we are moving DaVante Adams for a mid-round pick just before the season starts. So I think in the event that the Raiders stumble early on, if they're 1-5, if they're 1-6, they're 2-5 or something like that by the time the trade deadline rolls around, and they're opting to maybe blow it up or something like that, or maybe Adams requests a trade midway through the season after countless losses, then I can see a situation where the Jets pounce. And understanding that the season is literally starting in a couple of weeks, it just kind of feels like self-sabotage. If I put myself in the Raiders' shoes, if I was a Raider fan, I would be absolutely furious if the team got rid of him for, a third-round pick, and a little bit more. Like, what? I would lose my mind. But you could also make the argument, well, hey, how about a future pick, right? So like a 2025 first or something like that. That's fine if you want to go down that route, but it's like, okay, now all of a sudden we could be without a first round pick this season and the year after that. Those are pretty big opportunities to land, not only just superstar players, but cornerstones for your team. I mean, think about all the good players on the Jets roster right now that were first round picks. Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, AVT, Breece Hall, in Joe Douglas's eyes, was a first round pick, and they were contemplating about trading back up into the first round to go get him. The guy who just was an all-pro, just earned a big deal, Quinnen Williams, although wasn't picked by Douglas, still former third overall pick. So I think there's a bunch of different ways that you can look at it, but I do think in the event that the Jets get Adams, it would probably be more so towards the middle of the season, that week 7, week 8 mark. Now, 3 available options on the free agent market, I think could maybe make some sense, like in the short term, like an extremely cheap 1-year contract, just somebody to come in who you have some confidence in that they could just come in and do a good job with what they're asked to do. Maybe not necessarily replace Corey Davis's role within the team, but just add another body, add somebody that fits the system, add somebody that Aaron Rodgers potentially feels comfortable with in the short term. Like, hey, we just had this crazy, thing happen with Corey Davis retiring, just a short-term quick fix type of deal. We can look at Bryan Edwards, who is just released from the New Orleans Saints, somebody who has had experience in like a West Coast system, obviously being with the Raiders for the first 2 seasons of his career, and then after that 1 season with the Ravens. In 16 games back in 2021, he had 571 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. He's 24 years old. He's 6'3". I think that could make some sense. He was just released from the Saints, I think literally this morning, if not this morning, then it was late last night. I don't even remember when I saw it. My head's just kind of all over the place with the Davis news, but maybe Bryan Edwards makes some sense, and he's still young enough to where you can maybe mold him into a receiver that you would potentially see sticking around for the long term. Again, 24 years old, like that is super, super young to have, 3 seasons of experience under his belt. Maybe another name that the Jets could target is Sammy Watkins. I know it's not the most exciting name to throw out there, but Aaron Rodgers has vouched for Watkins before. He spent some time with the Green Bay Packers, albeit not that long, but he has played with Rodgers. And Watkins is a guy who, at this point in his career, obviously he's not what he once was back with the Bills and the Rams, but he's completely fine coming in as that veteran, limited role type of wide receiver. He's not going to rock the boat. He's not going to cause issues or anything like that. He's also jumped around from like really good team to really good team to really good team. Again, the Rams, then the Chiefs for a couple years with Mahomes, then the Ravens, then the Packers. So he's been in this position before where he's kind of similar to Dalvin Cook. Obviously, Dalvin Cook is a lot more valuable as far as where they're both at in their careers, but just a guy who can step in, again, limited role, have those quick hitters, right? Sit in zone, third and 6s, third and 8s, or maybe the guy that gets overlooked over the middle of the field because defenses are, really honing in on Garrett Wilson and, trying to figure out how to stop all the weapons that the Jets do possess. So maybe Sammy Watkins could be looked at here, again, with the familiarity with Rodgers. Another guy, JJ Arcega-Whiteside. This is somebody who Joe Douglas drafted in the 2nd round. Unfortunately, hasn't really seen the field a whole lot, hasn't really worked out in Philadelphia. He's on the Atlanta Falcons now, but there's some talks that he might not make the team, so a potential reunion for Douglas and Arcega-Whiteside. At the end of the day, he is big, 6'2", 225, and it's not like there's a lot of on-field experience for him. So maybe Douglas is like, I made that pick and then I was, with the New York, like I took the Jets job. So I didn't really have an opportunity to kind of get that firsthand look of what was going wrong, right? Why things were not working out. So maybe something there if he doesn't make Atlanta. And then we got a bunch of like honorable mentions too, just guys like Julio Jones, Zach Pascal, Jalen Reagor, Demarcus Robinson, Auden Tate. These are all guys, some with teams, some not. But the guys with teams, there's rumors they might not make, they're on the roster bubble, but they might not make the team. But the good news here, the Jets have money, the Jets have time, the Jets will have options, plenty of options with the roster cutdowns. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. If there's anybody realistically that you're eyeing, and I've seen T. Higgins' name pop up, but again, I just don't see the Bengals. I know the Bengals have to pay him at some point, but I just don't see Cincy moving on from a guy like just weeks before the start of the season. Trying to think of other like bigger name, big impact guys. I think, the ones that do pop in my head, it's all trade deadline acquisitions. I just don't see a team punting, giving away like a Mike Evans or a Chris Godwin. Like Tampa to me would have to be like 2-5, 2-6 or something, right around that trade deadline time for them to part ways with those wide receivers, especially considering that the Jets cannot offer a first round pick. They cannot offer a second round pick in this year's class. So I'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts. Actually, real quick, something to just kind of think about, right? One thing I like doing is looking at the new coaches coming in. So, for example, like Jonathan Gannon in Arizona or Sean Payton in Denver, these are new coaches coming in with new systems, new cultures. They want, obviously a change was made for a reason, in their respective organizations. So these new coaches are coming in with a different plan of attack. There might be good players on, these rosters with new coaches coming in that just might not fit what they want to do. They were really effective. They were good for the previous coach, and that's all well and good, but that coach is no longer here. So if you have some time, think about the new coaches that have entered in to the NFL and just check out their depth chart, right? Look if there's any like veteran pieces there or somebody that has made some noise in previous years, but with the new coaching staff isn't really, it doesn't really look like there's a good chance of them actually sticking with the team just because they want to go in a different direction. So, let me know your thoughts. Thanks so much. And as always, go Jets.